Welcome to the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel, and together we'll be chatting with everyday people living extraordinary lives. So they've learned how to activate their potential and are helping to illuminate others. So I hope you will join me in listening to their journey. And if you like what you hear, and I think you will, I'd love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. The world could use a lot more activation and illumination. Have a great day. Today on the Activate and Illuminate podcast, you are going to hear Dr. Joe Whitaker. Now, Dr. Joe is educated in biomedical sciences, genetics, oncology, microbiology, and immunology. She realized that natural healing through the alignment of mind, body, and spirit was more effective than traditional medical approaches. She works with the land and people to raise the frequency and heal using the consciousness of water, crystals, supplements, natural foods, and exercise. Now, this is going to be part one. In the part two, we will explore the story of her business partner, Kelly Hinson. But for this first part, we'll hear from Dr. Joe and the consciousness of water and how they are actually working to raise the frequency of water, and that by doing that, you can actually heal yourself. So this is a fascinating topic, and it excites me. It's kind of my jam, and I can't wait for you guys to hear about it. Okay, listen in. Today, I have the honor of having Dr. Joe Whitaker from the UK. So long story, I was fascinated when I heard Dr. Joe and her business partner, Kelly Hinson, on Mark Atwood's podcast. And they were talking about the frequency and energetic aura of water, how they have come to understand and be able to actually expand the properties of water to be able to help people with a lot of different things that they're experiencing. Dr. Joe has a vast background in so many things, and I'm going to let her go into her story herself, because I couldn't possibly tell you everything that she has behind her name. But I want to just give a big old welcome from the UK and welcome Dr. Joe.
Thank you very much, Melanie, for inviting me on this podcast. It's been a little bit of time for us to get here because of the post in Canada and all this kind of stuff, but I'm really excited to be here today, and thank you everybody for listening. I'm hopefully going to share some stuff that you won't hear anywhere else. My favourite phrase of 2025 is, we have run out of books. A lot of things are being created now and old knowledge is being brought back. So the age of believing is over. The age of knowing, discovering, creating and experiencing is really here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about first of all, your credentials, your background, and how you got into everything that you're presently doing, Joe.
Sure. So I was always, as a child, very interested in science and nature. Those are my two things. And I absolutely loved school and I loved learning. At the age of 7, I got a microscope and I would take blood samples from my friends and look at them under the microscope. And on nature walks, I would pick up dead animals and, see how they worked. That's always been my mindset, exploring for myself. So it wasn't any surprise when I went into the sciences. And my first degree was in biological sciences, specialising in genetics and microbiology. I then did a master's degree in oncology, which is cancer research, as you know. And then my PhD was in immunology, and I specialised in genetic vaccinations, but everything around that area. But that was back in 2003. And after 2003, I didn't stay in academia because, frankly, it's quite, oh, I think the best way to describe it's a pretty corrupt place. Whoever gets the funding, who gets the promotions, what you're allowed to research really didn't sit very well with me. And I experienced that, and I was like, I don't fancy that game. And also, I didn't see the point in kind of publishing research papers and nothing ever happening. So I was much more interested in scientific research that would result in technology and products that would make the world a better place. So I worked with academia and in private companies and even in investment companies, working and scouting for very early stage technology that was in bioscience. It was in, I've done this in engineering, manufacturing, chemistry, biochemistry, really taking this very early, early stage research in the lab, and seeing whether it could create a valuable product that will have an impact on humanity. And with my kind of scientific and then business training, I could see the potential early on and to try and get those projects further on, like out of academia into something practical. And so I worked a lot with technologies during that time. And I think what I saw during that time was that the vast majority of academic research, when it comes to the acid test of does it work in real life, 99% of it doesn't. You know, it is kind of the experimental setup, the way that the experiments are carried out, and the biases, or the, you know, the way that these things carried out can often think that something's going to be positive, but actually when it really comes down to it's not. But there is fantastic technologies that I witnessed. For instance, like how to cure lazy eye or amblyopia with this. You know, they put a patch on the eye and try and get the other eye to work. Well, this team had, and this is back in the early 2000s, this headset that you could wear, and there was a mouse that would be seen in one eye and a maze in the other, and you had to use both eyes together to go through. And using this device for something like 20 hours would result in the eyes, the amblyopia, being cured. But that product is still not on the market. And so, I got involved. I've seen very many brilliant things, but I've also seen very many things, not work across a range of scientific disciplines. And I always just wondered, why isn't the really good stuff getting out there? And some of maybe the more boring stuff wasn't. So I've always had a very healthy dose of skepticism for how money flows around this around this universe. And I wasn't particularly spiritual as well during this time. I needed to physically see these things. So when 2019 hit, that caused everybody, I think, to really stand back and take a look at the world that we were in. And I remember at first, because of my training, I was like, wow, there really must be, this infectious agent going around, viruses, do these terrible things. And it's what is going on. We need to do something to be able to protect ourselves. But when the rules started coming out and the information started coming out in the media, after I'd been actually in the lab, I was like, well, this is nonsense. And I couldn't understand why this whole nonsense was being spoken to people. But at that time, I couldn't find anybody else that was actually speaking out, because of the circle that I was in, it just was that way. And I would say that I was pretty much a lone voice, and I actually thought the world was going mad, or I was going mad, for a good 12 months, because I was very, very isolated. And I remember on New Year's Eve, and I could see all this, people's mental health deteriorating and things like this. Because during this time, I was like, we've got to go out, we've got to exercise, we've got to do what we can to keep fit and healthy and keep our minds going. but I could see everybody else was really deteriorating mental health wise. And the arguments that was happening with like family members and things like this, even though I'm a subject matter expert in this area, was really debilitating. And honestly, it was about New Year's Eve when I phoned the Samaritans, and I said, I am feeling really, really low, and I'm not sure it's worth being here on this earth because everything has gone crazy. Anyway, they had they kind of talked me down and things like this, and the next day I woke up and I made a very conscious choice. I was like, right, if I'm going to stay here, I'm going to do something positive. I've got to learn what's going on. I've got to learn, use being gifted all of those subjects together, which is a very, very rare combination. I imagine there's probably 50 people in the world with that specific combination, in order that I can do something to help humanity. So I spent probably 4 or 5 hours a day researching how to detox yourself from the environment, going actually down into the science that we were never taught. The other side of the coin, which is actually there in the public domain, and you can find these published papers of research which totally contradict actually a lot of the things that I was taught at university. And I began a protocol of detoxing myself because I understood that whilst I didn't make that choice, to actually have the injections because of what I knew, I knew that this was not the right thing to do. But I also knew I had taken injections before. I was drinking tap water. I was drinking processed food. And I'd been doing that my whole life. And so I created a detox protocol for me and my children to see what would happen if I was to remove the heavy metals and parasites and all the things from my body. And the most key thing that I did was drink clean, structured water. And all I expected, and I started to feel better. I actually got myself very, very fit. I actually built a gym in my garden. I'm actually a boxer as well. And I was, built a boxing gym, so they weren't allowed to go to gyms and all these crazy things, right? And I just expected to feel better and better. And then one day, while I was at an event teaching people how to detox, this like hours, I was doing like 4 or 5 hours a night researching this. I saw a lady with a crystal in her hand as she was doing some crystal healing on somebody. And there was a light coming out of this crystal. And I said to her, wow, that's beautiful. How did you get the light to come out the crystal? Is there a torch in it? And she went, what are you talking about? There isn't any torch. And I said, yeah, but how do you get the light to come out of it? And she went, oh, you can see. And I was like, what? And this is when I realised I detoxed my pineal gland and my body so that I could now, because I'll say this in non-woo-woo terms, I can now see more of the magnetic spectrum of light than I could before. And then from that journey, I then looked into the whole world in a completely different way, in a quantum way, which I believe that, we've got this word spirituality, but I like to use maybe the word quantum because it can be a little bit, which type of spirituality. But actually, when you look at the word in terms of vibration, frequency, quantum, you take kind of all of that out. And since then, I've been, looking into water and the quantum nature of our universe, and even now, how you can use that knowledge to change the frequency of you, places, people, for the better, for the better of humanity. So that's in a nutshell how I got on that journey.
Well, you are speaking my jam. So so many questions, so many places to go. So you were in this pharmaceutical world, you were in this, scientific mindset, which you clearly still have. But tell us what you say you can now experience magnetic spectrums that you were not able to see before. How has that shifted your perspective? And what do you now see in people that you didn't see back then or see in circumstances?
Well, what I've realised is that um, you can, although you can see maybe the colours here, when the lights are dimmer and you change the focus of your eyes, you start to see kind of these wavy lines everywhere, right? And when I was younger, I definitely took mushrooms maybe a couple of times at festivals. And what I noticed was when you take these psychedelics, they say, oh, this is you hallucinating. But I wasn't hallucinating. This was like in the middle of the day. So I was like, no, this is actually here. This is, I was thinking about it rationally. And it's almost like for those people who haven't experienced this, it's like the shimmer of when you get a hot weather and you can see it like coming off the pavements and things like this. And so I was like, I didn't want to dismiss this as me being, there's something wrong with me. I was looking, what can that be? And this is where a research may be the fourth phase of water, which is plasma phase of water. And that's what we are. That's what we're seeing. But I went one step further. So certain times of the night, in certain lights, you can see the frequency of crystals, for instance, emanating from crystals. And I would notice that one crystal would give off a different characteristic than another. I also noticed that when they were just sitting there on a shelf, they didn't seem to do that. You had to pick them up. And so I did an experiment, this is the nature of me, because along this way, I found a friend who could always do this. She wasn't a scientist or anything, and she was explaining to me what was going on. And we did this experiment with this wonderful crystal surgery lady called Cam in Leicestershire. And Cam would hold up a crystal and we would independently write down what we could see and then compare notes. And then the notes, what I could see and what my friend could see were the same. How big it was, maybe what colour it was, how big these waves were. So this kind of proved to me that, no, this is a real phenomenon. And then from there, other things started to happen, like information would come into my mind, like a thought. And instead of just going, well, that doesn't fit into what I've been taught, so that's nonsense, I would just sit with it and think, well, that sounds pretty nuts, but let's go with it. And I found out all sorts of things from doing that, which I didn't research and couldn't possibly know, but it was correct. And since then, I have ditched the books and I use that intuition first. And then what I allow is for any information regarding that to come into me to validate my thoughts. Because if you do it the other way round, it's programming you to think a certain way. And so now I can say I don't read books. Some people keep giving me many books to read, but I'm like, if a chapter comes out to me or information comes out to me, it's got to come this way, because I have found too many things out that I couldn't possibly know just through intuition. And so this is where I learned how the pineal gland works, how your brain really works, where information is really coming into your brain, because your thoughts do not exist in your brain. Memories are not stored in your brain. And I started to understand the science of it, but I really want it to be a journey led by my awakening and my awareness rather than being guided on a particular path. And that has led me on an amazing journey of discovery. And between myself and Kelly, who work in the crystal water experience, we have unlocked things that maybe, 1, 2, 3 years ago that are now people are talking about. But we already figured this out because we hadn't got this preconception. So that kind of thing, it's mainly visual. It's mainly, I think there's a word for it, claircognizance, I think is the word for it. So.
Yeah, what a beautiful way to just explain our relationship to this field of information, right? This field of information that if we do not, if we're experiencing it versus, the information that we're being pre-told, it's an entirely different experience.
It's a completely different experience. And there's an adage that says there's nothing new under the sun and all the information is there. It is, but it's a whole wealth of information. And what I've learned is that something has to be in your awareness to trigger that off. And I've gone on deliberate journeys. So what I would say is, when I saw those frequencies, and I would hold up 2 crystals and I'd put them together and I would see what happens. I was experimenting and using my senses. I would develop those skills further and ask for further information. Say, okay, I can see this is happening. I'd really like to understand how it happens. And I would put that into my field. And then I would meet a person or go to somewhere where the next piece of the jigsaw could be fitted together. And that is I tell you, that is a much faster way to solve a puzzle. And the way that I describe it, it's a difference between linear thinking, which is how kind of you taught maybe at school, and kind of what they describe as ADHD, which I think is a superpower. I mean, if you've got a jigsaw and the linear way of learning is you do around the edges, then you find the bits that together and put it together. By the time you finish the jigsaw, you know it's a girl riding a horse. If you actually, you've got to start with some kind of framework, but then start piecing these things together. If your aim and objective is to understand the overall picture, you will then select the jigsaw pieces that actually look most relevant for the picture, and you will start creating. You don't have to do the whole horse to know it's a horse. You don't have to do the whole girl to know it's a horse, do you? And so it's a much faster process of learning and understanding when you fit the jigsaw pieces. And my brain is especially good at that. So any of you guys with ADHD out there who get told that this is this is anything that you need to be worried about, I would say it's not. You have to learn to live with those consequences, as in you can be very scattered and be self-disciplined, and that is a discipline. You can learn to concentrate. I can concentrate on 2 different things. This is what I used to do at the time. In fact, my brain loves it. I can listen to I can be on a call. By the way, I'm not doing it now. And talking about something extremely scientific and high level. But at the same time, I'm working on a document at similarly high level and working it at the same time. All right, that's a discipline. I didn't just wake up one day and do it. I taught myself how to do it. So all you guys who've got ADHD, think about the powers that it gives you, and you need to create the framework. But, it is a superpower. So please use it.
Yeah, 100%. I see so many people embracing the label and the medications that come with that as a curse. And I 100% agree with you. I think so many things of some of these different conditions are exactly that, a superpower. So tell us, let's go into this, what you and Kelly have created and developed, what it actually does, and how it can help us. Now, I'll just tell everyone I've experienced their technology in my house for the last while. And I'm also looking at ways you'll hear me asking Joe some questions just about further use of it, but I can absolutely feel the difference on the technology on my phone. So let's go into it. Tell us what it is, what you have created, what it does for us, and how it can help us.
This episode brought to you by bizbloomer.com. BizBloomer.com is your friend to small and local businesses, a platform and directory that provides exposure and support to small ma-and-pa type stores or local entrepreneurs, helping them make an impact in their own local communities. BizBloomer.com is taking the corporate out of business and helping small businesses become relevant and essential again. Businesses can get started for free. Search for BizBloomer businesses in your area. Check them out today. BizBloomer.com. That's BIZBloomer.com.
Sure. So along the way, and Kelly will be able to share her own story, but I was working with the land. That was one of my callings when I woke up, to go and investigate what was going on sacred sites and things like this. And Kelly was working with people's biofield. And there's something profound that we both discovered separately. And that is that let's go on the physical side and what Kelly's talking about. Anything with a battery, when you take a pendulum to it and you measure the magnetic field of the pendulum, it goes anti-clockwise. However, when you measure the extremity of your biofield, it goes clockwise. So your biofield is another word for your auric field. It is a toroidal field, and the outside is supposed to be kind of like exploding, and the inside you, which is why they say go inside, is an implosion field inside your pineal gland, and that's how your projector works of this reality. And so therefore, when you pick up a mobile phone, because it's going the wrong way, it disrupts your biofield, and it actually destroys your biofield. And this means you become very disconnected, because when we all have a biofield, we can sense other people and other things around us. And a great example of this is with children, because a child's biofield, especially before the age of 14, we've measured, is absolutely huge. It's like 20, 30 meters, even with their shoes on. And then it shrinks by the time they're 14 to an adult, which typically we find, if it's their elbow, it's quite a small one. This is with your shoes on, by the way. A typical one is probably from your wrist to maybe the end of your hands. But okay. But as soon as you pick up the phone, even with the child, it shrinks to nothing. And when you think about it, it's like you've got a field going clockwise. This technology is going that opposite direction, which, by the way, it does not need to be. They could easily make these devices and these batteries to work the other way around. I just have to say that. There's no reason why it can't be spun the other way. And this is what is disrupting us. And so when you're saying to Billy, your dinner's ready, and it's on his little device, he's not connected to you. And he's very engrossed in his technology. And this is an actual thing that you can measure. And this is why we are so disconnected. But what Kelly figured out was that, because she went to an event and a lady was showing biofields, and she was showing that when somebody held a mobile phone but their feet was connected to the earth, it didn't affect their biofield, because they were effectively grounded into the earth's grid. And she thought, well, we must be able to try and ground without getting our feet wet, because we live in a quantum universe. So there must be a way of doing it. And with her special gifts and abilities, she was able to bring down frequencies from the natural earth grid, embed them in these stickers with a toroidal field, which is the same as ours, so the geometries match. And then when you put them on your phone, those frequencies would resonate with the frequencies of your biofield, because you are organic. So when you have two frequencies that are the same, when they go together, they are amplified. Right? So they become bigger. And so you can grow your auric field just like getting your feet on the ground, using this technology, which is to embed a frequency in a toroidal field geometry. And I was also working with the land at the same time, and what I found is when I went to places that were quite nefarious, and I've been to some very interesting places, very interesting. I probably won't say it on it. I won't say it on here. The pendulum will spin anti-clockwise when it's in a nefarious place, but when the energy is good, it always spins clockwise. So separately, we've realised that actually what is harmonious for us is things that can be measured on the outside by a pendulum going clockwise. And so our technology, what it is doing is it is harmonizing and spinning clockwise the field of the devices that we put it on, or the water that we put it on, which is then in harmony with your body. And the frequencies match the organic frequencies in your own body, and it makes your force field, aka your biofield or aura, much stronger, so that the negative effects of what's going on around you does not have the same impact. It harmonizes it effectively.
Well, I have so many questions about the water charger. So I got it, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know where to put it. Do I put it on, the water coming out? Do I put it on my fridge to affect the water coming out of my filtered fridge? Do I stick it on my tap? We actually have a cistern. So our water gets delivered and it goes into a cistern, and, there'll be it's like a huge underground cistern. So do I stick this on something and dump it into my cistern to affect everything all at once? So I've had so many questions about how to use this. And so how I've been using it so far, since I got it, is just to stick a glass of water on top of it. But this was part of the questions that I had, was how long does it take, first of all, to be accurately charged? How long is that process, or is it instantaneous? And maybe you can help me out by what I said, Joe, about where you think the best place for people to put some, or do we need a whole bunch in our house? Like, what's the answer?
So we have measured all of these things. So I can give you some advice here. So there's something about our 3D reality where things aren't quite instant. It takes a little bit of time. But it doesn't take long. So it takes a few seconds to charge up water. It only takes a few seconds, but it doesn't seem to be like straight away, because you've got to imagine all the hydrogen ions. It takes a little bit of time to change that spin, but it's not long. So because of the nature of the stickers as well, you've got this charge, but it depends how big and strong a charge that you want. Okay, so I have a distiller. The water here in the UK is disgusting. So I distill my water. I then put it in a copper jug, because the copper charges the water, and that is how you get structured water. There's a lot of complicated devices out there to structure water, and really you just need to put it in copper. That's all you need to do. And when you then what I do is, as the water comes out the distiller, I put it on that jug, so it's charged, and then I put it in the copper jug to drink out of it. So now I have frequencies and charged, structured water, and that's what I drink. And we do these experiments with people doing that method, and we see that their whole biofield is magnified. It depends on the person, 8-10 meters, right? So you see a lot of these other devices out there that claim to grow your aura. This absolutely completely works like that. However, you can then put these stickers in other places, and we've had some great suggestions from people. So, for instance, I also have one in my radiator system in my house. So my whole house, the water in it will be charged throughout the whole house. And my whole house is now at a higher frequency. This is the other experiments we've done. We've got one of the water chargers called Comfort and Ease, which has got pain cancelling frequencies. Pain is like a series of frequencies. Let's say there's 100. And we've got a good chunk of those cancellation frequencies, which work like noise cancelling headphones, in that water charger. So you can, for instance, get a glass of water like this, charge it up with a sticker, a couple of seconds. This whole water then will have, well, for a start, it'll have the right charge because it'll be spinning the right way. But then that water is then got the pain code frequencies in. And if you then get even a few drops into a bath, your whole bath then will be transformed, because higher frequencies that are in line with the earth grid, so going the right direction, having the right charge, always trump low frequency, disharmonious frequencies. It's the nature, it's the law of the universe. That's why we're all taught to love and forgive and all this kind of stuff, because there are higher frequency. So we have a lady with fibromyalgia, and we're working to detox her. Well, one of her rituals is she will bathe in this water, because she's like, this is better than any drug that I've ever had. And Kelly will probably talk about her Challenge Me to Be Pain-Free Facebook group, because every 2 or 3 weeks she does a live, and we prove this. Everyone gets on the show, they have a glass of water, she will bring down a frequency. Everyone will give pain, their pain score 1 to 10 before they start. They then hold up this glass of water, which, if you want me to, I'll explain why in a minute, because this is like going on a bit of a tangent, why you can do this, because there is a scientific explanation. And then they drink the water all. Actually, it's very powerful when you actually put it on the area. And then they all give their pain score at the end. Everyone's is at least half. I'm not saying it's all going to completely go. And there's many people who've joined that group going, well, I'm skeptical, but I want to try, right? Because there's something about intention. You have to want this to happen, okay? You have to say, right, okay, you have to suspend, don't care whether you can save your judgment to the end, is what I'm saying. And we get fantastic feedback from this. And this is what it is. Really, we're putting anti-pain code frequencies into people's biofield so they don't feel this discomfort. So the other way that I use it is I take one of these bottles out with me, because when you eat out or you drink out, the water and the food is usually, it's got the wrong charge. It's spinning the wrong way. And so by just putting one spray on that food, it is now transformed. It is harmonized with your body and your biofield. So the answer to your question is, you can do many things with it. And you could just create your water every day, go onto your radiator and then put a drop on every day and then put one in your cistern. But it's a lot easier, and I'm fortunate because I've got access to many, to go, well, I'll put one there, I'll put one there, I'll put one there. And so that it's for convenience, really, but one drop of water will go a long way. Remember, one drop of structured charged water with memory will, when it's a high frequency, can still be found in 1 billion gallons. It's very powerful. Water in our universe, our whole universe is really made up of hydrogen ions, and they contain information, and you can program them. And the other thing I want to say to people is, if you would like to try our products, great, because that will prove to you that it works. But you can do this yourself as well. And I always want to just show people. So anybody has ever put their hands together and created what they call an energy ball? Let me explain what that is. If you are a magnetic being, your thoughts are programming your magnetic field with information. We all know about magnetic strips having information because we've all got credit cards. We would have used the old tapes, that we had on beach. It's all magnetic coding. You are the same. So when you're putting your hands together, the reason why you feel this resistance is because your hands have the same direction of spin, aka, imagine these are magnets, that's north and that's north. And when you put north together, there's resistance. That's what you're feeling. You're feeling your magnetic fields when you're doing this. And they're the same, so there's some resistance to it. That's what that energy ball is. So that when you then put into your mind, what is it I want to do or think, or how do I want to program this water? You put your water in front of you and you're like, okay, I would like, I don't know, I've got a headache. I would like relief from that headache. You put that into your field. I want to be pain-free. Really think it, really feel it. When you feel that chi energy, that energy, whatever you want to call it, same thing, you're charging up your magnetic field. Hold it around the water and it will be in that water. And when you drink it, you will feel a difference. What we found with the pain codes, and I can't explain this, right, is that you can drink it, but the most effective use of it is actually, unless it's something internal, is to actually put it on the outside of your body. We're not quite sure why that works like that, but there's something about our reality in which that works. So we're teaching people that this stuff is real and how it does work.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, I should create some sprays with it.
Spray bottles are great because it's easy then, isn't it? Because then you just put your distilled or your charged water and you can put it wherever you want to. The codes, because of the nature of our reality, imagine nothing is permanent. Everything is changing all the time because we would never be able to change, right? So the field around us is constantly changing. And likewise, I have to physically touch something for it to make a difference, because otherwise everything would just blend into each other. I would charge up this glass of water and then all of a sudden the whole world is charged, right? There's something about intention and touching, and this is really what I feel that touching is having the intention to program something or interact with it. And we also show this in our workshops where we charge somebody up, we measure their biofield before, we charge them up, and then we get them to take a sample of their hair and put it onto the shoulder of the person next to them, and their biofield is then charged up. However, if the person being charged up does not consent to it, they can protect their biofield and say, I don't accept that information coming into my field. So that you don't. So this then, when we see this in action, we understand that actually, when you eat something or ingest something, you are consenting for that to go into your field. When someone, does something to you and it's going to happen, you are consenting to it. But you don't have to consent. You can control what information goes into your biofield and what you choose to accept and you don't, because we can measure this using these codes, for instance.
Oh, so many questions. So I had a lady on recently who creates different sound healing, does different sound healing, and she's in my personal session with her, she said, Melanie, your biofield is actually so big that you need to bring it in because you're so empathic, you're picking up all these different things, and we need to bring it in a little bit closer. So do you find that that structured water can create the optimum field for you? Like, do you feel that? Like, have you experienced that before with other people?
This episode brought to you by protandemcanada.lifevantage.com. What if you could turn on your body to work like it was supposed to? What if you could have it remember how to handle toxins, stress, and the environment like it used to when you were young? What if it worked for your pets too? What if this is not about supplementing something that is missing, but activating something that has gone dormant? About actually turning on your body to make these things again. Learn how to activate your body now. Check us out, protandemcanada.lifevantage.com.
Yes. And we
Okay.
had a lady come to our course before, and her field was massive, right? When you have a big field, you don't need to bring it in, and you won't necessarily bring it in. You have to program this. This is my practice every morning, right? When I wake up in the morning, I have this practice. I program my field about what I am going to allow into my field, what I'm going to attract, what kind of day I'm going to have. Right? So you wake up, it almost seems like in the fresh day you have to do this again. So because your field is big for a reason. You don't need to bring it in, but you can literally say, any challenges this is some of the things that I say, any challenges I easily overcome. My path is very clear for me. I only attract those people who are on my mission. And I'm going to feel happy and motivated today. Anybody that comes into my field that needs healing will receive healing from me. And I importantly say, I do not consent to any AI or negative entities enter into my field. They will either be repelled by my field, or they will be harmonized and healed by my field. And then I just walk around with it. And then I say, and I have love and all this kind of stuff. So now I'm walking around with a massive field because I've artificially created mine, because the mine isn't kind of a natural one, if you know what I mean. And I don't get any problems. And I would say that Kelly and I both have this practice, and we really do not experience not very nice people, because we've programmed that. And we don't let anything in that isn't going to be there. And we don't do it in a nasty way, like you don't use this destroy and things like this. So if you've got this natural ability, you use it, and you've got a lot of power with that field. And that's what I say to everybody is, when you use this technology to grow your field, be very careful what you put in your field every day. Because if you're putting in negative information and negative thoughts, that's also going into your field and everybody around. If you are negative about an illness or not having any money, you're also amplifying that stuff. So it's very important what you do that. But the other thing just to share with everybody is, when you're in nature and you're sitting there in a field or something, you don't often think very negative thoughts. You are often in peace. And that is because you are in the organic grid. There is only love, compassion, peace, beauty in that field. It's the artificial matrix grid where the doubt, suffering, fear is. So whenever you are feeling those, realize you're not connected to the right grid. It's not you. It's not your thoughts. It's not, this. You don't need to own that stuff. You're accidentally plugging in, as we all do from time to time, to the wrong grid. So observe those thoughts and say, I am not attached to any of this stuff, and attached to something else. So what we notice is how our hope for these things, as well as protecting people's biofields by magnifying the good frequencies within people, that it would also bring them closer to the organic grid, and they would spend less time in the artificial grid, which is all this Wi-Fi stuff around us, and these screens, which I really would love to get onto, is programming negative things into your fields. And therefore people have ideas and thoughts and feelings which they think are their own, but it's not. They are being programmed, right? So we thought, well, if we can plug people more into the organic grid, some of that stuff is going to go away. So we have put these in family member houses that we love very much, but are not really spending much time in the organic grid, put it like that. And they spend a lot of time in the fear, and they're following the news and the news stories. And we were like, let's do this. Our theory should be that they should be coming more into the organic grid, the new earth, for want of a better word. And I can tell you it's worked more incredibly and more quickly than we can possibly imagine. And me and Kelly like going, they said so I did this. I don't think my mum and dad would ever watch this. I am not sure, because they were not kind of interested in any of this kind of stuff for whatever reason. And I love them and everything. But they started using these products. Now, the BBC, we don't listen to the BBC anymore. That's we're fed up of politicians. They're always on the same. And they were ranting about all the stuff that I was ranting about before, just by putting this on the water pipe that goes up into their sink and the water. They have been transformed, and we are seeing more and more of this just by plugging them out of the fear matrix into the love matrix. And it's incredible what we're seeing.
Wow. So you're going to have people shopping like crazy for themselves and and for all the people out there that maybe need a little tweak. That's fascinating. I didn't even consider that.
I'd love to
that. Now, is there...
But so we've got a lady who brought some to put in a school that she's at, and we're going to try and do. I mean, right, we're a new business. We need to generate an income, but there's this, we're using these codes and things for humanity in a way that I don't want to go into too much details on here, because it might stop us doing the work. But we want this out everywhere because of the positive impact that it is having on people. And there's people out there helping us kind of changing the frequency of the water in places that really, really could do it. And we're getting great feedback from that. So
the first thing that I thought of when you said, for example, sticking something like this in someone's house, is there anything that, as far as permission, because to stick something in somebody else's house, what type of permission do we need to ask for that, just from an energetic perspective?
So where I've put them so far, is a shared environment, and somebody in that shared environment would like that. So this, and by the way, we are not programming people. We are giving them access to nature and the natural grid. We're not changing them energetically and putting information into them. That's a real distinction to make, because you're absolutely right, without that consent. And actually, I actually feel, right, this whole consent thing is about, the reason why people need to give consent is because you cannot work on somebody's biofield without consent, because it won't happen. So this is in there, and when the other people are taking on the water, if their higher selves and more, in tune selves doesn't want it to happen, they'll switch it off. But they are able to do that. But they don't, just like we are also being poisoned without consent, because on a certain level we have consented in a on a higher level, right, in a different level. So it is, we haven't just kind of like put them there willy-nilly. These tend to be joint spaces. I haven't broken into people's houses that I don't know. But in these community centres at the moment, and all these places, people are being programmed by the water negatively already. We are giving people the opportunity to experience the organic, and what they then choose to do as a result of that, we're not in control of at all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, beautiful. So before we started, you and I talked briefly about our children and just, new generations coming up. What do you see as we're talking, and I'm thinking, that there can be two schools of thought, kind of, the dismal, new these new generations don't understand this and they don't understand that and blah, blah, blah. But I actually think it's the opposite. And how do you see these frequencies and technologies affecting our future?
So, first of all, I think the Generation Z, then Alpha, I think we've just started on Beta, are incredibly powerful. It's like they are already switched on to stuff that it's taken us our whole life to be in the right space to be switched on. And I'm seeing this through, through lots of videos that are out there of kids like solving the Rubik's Cube in a record time and being able to sing opera at, 7 years old. And they are just incredibly talented. And what's happening is, for sure we can all see, is they are being bombarded with technology to dumb them down. That's why the technology push has been particularly on those kids, because of just how powerful they are. But I don't think that they will succeed, basically, is the long and short of it. And we are being told that, Gen Z, and they're all like, they're this, they're that, the other. And there's examples. I think, from my experience, they are few and far between. They are coming to the realization that perhaps their millennial or Gen X parents were not very switched on, and they understand what's going on more than perhaps those parents are. And they're going to go through this turmoil, which we all do with our parents, and going, why didn't you know? Why did you do this to me? But I'm really thinking and seeing how they're developing, and their emotional maturity is going to be like, okay, you were poisoned. You were. This is how I see it. I don't see it that people have behaved badly. We have been poisoned either chemically or through this technology being programmed. So there's no blame to be made. There's no blame. There's no shame for anything that we have done. And we can undo it all if we address it and bring the highest frequency to dissolve all of that trauma. So I think that we are here really to embed the world so that they can bring it on to the next level. I think they're absolutely amazing, and they're going to do incredible things. I can't wait to see it. We can just retire and watch them absolutely kick ass.
As you said that, I just got goosebumps all over my body. And, maybe that's a great place to end this. And just, with that frequency and that feeling that of just that love that we're all going to experience.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Dr. Joe Whitaker from the UK, who, I can't even explain how I knew as soon as I heard you guys on Mark Atwood podcast, I knew I had to reach out and connect. And I reached out and purchased the technology. And then on that website, I saw that Kelly was offering these soul readings. And so I experienced that. I had purchased it, and then I experienced it, and I knew in that experience, and just in some of the stuff that she had told me and that we had experienced together through that, I'm like, oh, I just have to connect with you ladies. And so we will at a future time connect with Kelly, and then maybe both of you together as well in the future. But I just want to say thank you for one, following your intuition and allowing these transmissions to come through, and having the guts and the courage to be from the scientific environment that you were in, to follow your intuition and what you knew was right for you, and likely so many others. So thank you.
Hello, thank you. And it's you have such a beautiful energy. It's like, do you know, I'm getting really hot. I can feel the frequencies from here. It's like I haven't really got this on. I mean, maybe our radiator's coming on, but it's like I feel so elated and high vibe just being in your presence. So, thank you for the little charge up. And thank you to everyone for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. I, once again, am full of goosebumps. So we'll end here. And thank you to the listeners. And I know that this is going to hit home.